our good friends, as misguided as many of them are, our good friends are wasting good time because we ain't got it. NAACP has the same basic education platform as the NEA and the AFT. Who are those people? They're the biggest teachers unions in the country. Mr. Jealous and I, he's the president of the NAACP, had a little conversation. I thought it was a conversation. He got all mad. Two light-skinned brothers out there. I let him know I'm light-skinned on the outside. I'm jet black inside. You mess around, get scraped up in here, brother. Woo! You ain't that mad, brother. You ain't that mad. I promise you. You could be mad, but you ain't that mad. I don't get to this place being a punk. Believe that. We can all be what we need to be, but let's just be civil so we can get up out of here. He got mad. He got mad because I told him we were doing something down in New Orleans, and Soledad was doing an interviewing, and she said, well, what can we do in order to move the community forward and help in education? And Mr. Jealous jumped into what the rhetoric told him. He said, we need to give teachers more money. He said, we need more resources, and parents need to get involved more. So I listened to him because I'm polite. I really am. We are polite gentlemen. That's what I'm saying. So I listened to what he had to say, and I said, well, in front of a packed studio audience, I said, if the NAACP would be so kind as to get out of bed with the teachers union, maybe we get some help out here. I guess that made him angry. At least that's what he said. And the point that I'm making here is the reason why you as adults, many of you as adults, are struggling to read the very word that you're here to read is not because of you. I am not a conspiracy theorist. That's not what I do. Some people do conspiracy. I'm not built that way. It's not a conspiracy. Here's why. The reason why is because it was believed for so long, all the way up to today, that if in fact a child is black or Latino or poor, that they're not really expected to learn that much. See, there's certain things that we expect of black children that we do not expect of white children. Now recognize the term I said we. Because I'm not talking about white people. This church owes it to itself to make sure that everybody in this church can read. I'm not particularly fond of any literature. I think you have some here. It's called the Bible. Start at the front. Mr. Z decided that he wanted to be a man. He said he wanted to be a father, and he wanted to be able to look his son in the face. He said he was afraid of what could happen if he didn't know how to read. This man was 35 years old at the time. He said he walked into his local library. Like many men who were struggling with addiction and have to humble themselves, he said he had to humble himself, and he came right in there and he said, I can't read. I don't even know, I just can't even imagine the courage that it took to say that. The reason why our community, the reason why here in Memphis only 17% of the people participate in this is because they're afraid to. See, we often look at education when we look at children. And see, we see kids who won't raise their hand and they act up in class because, why? They're afraid to tell it, because if they put their hand up and they say something, they're going to think somebody make fun of them because people are going to find out what they don't know. Well, you think the same thing. It's one of the things, it's one of the easiest tricks in the book. It's one of the reasons why. It's how the Black Panther Party came to be, because what was happening, and you know about the poll taxes and making you read something, right? I'm here to tell you, I'm confident that there are many folks who feel like you have to still go down there and read something. And so you are afraid to participate in your own governance. Let me just put this in a different perspective for you. The level of illiteracy in Memphis would make you a second or third world country. You've seen them, right? You've seen them on television. You understand, I mean, we're talking about Haiti, a country that cannot recover. Japan's going to be all right. I mean, my heart goes out to every single person there. Please don't think that I'm saying anything wrong. Please believe me. One death is a death, and I don't want you to think I'm thinking anything other than that. But Haiti has not moved a step forward. Memphis is Haiti. When you look at them and you see that people struggling the way that they are, it's because at the root of it all, you have an illiterate population. Now, is everyone in Haiti? No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying everybody in Memphis. That's absurd. That's not what I'm saying. Don't get caught up in that and try to dissuade yourself from doing what you need to do and own the piece of this that is yours. This church has too many educators in it, has too many smart people in it for every single body in here not to be able to read. It is too simple for me to sit here and talk about the boys in the school with the pants hanging down and the girls having the babies and all this other foolishness. The reason that they are doing that is because they are allowed to, because you are not in a position to feel comfortable even participating in their education. You are scared of school. You feel like if you go in there, somebody's going to say something to you, put a piece of paper in front of you, say something faster than you ready to hear it, and you feel like you're at a loss. I say this to you, brother pastor, it's out of love for you. We cannot allow this to continue. It must end today. We can't expect the people to rise up when they don't feel comfortable standing. 2,200 members of Olivet. Every single one of you must commit to dealing with this issue. And there's not a single person who's too old for it. Not one. Because unfortunately, too many of our grandparents are raising little babies. Too many of y'all can't just sit back on a porch and be big mama or big daddy. You running around with formula. You still got to go to meetings at schools. You still got to do something when somebody calls and says your child is acting up. It is because as a community, education has been served to us on a dirty plate. Overcooked and underseasoned. Disgusting in both presentation and consumption. The schools that we are sending our children to are not schools at all. I know they're not schools because the people who work in them don't send their kids to them. I am telling you, you can't tell me that it's a school when you don't send your kids there. You can't tell me that you value it as education when the first thing that you will tell somebody who you love is don't send your kid to that school. You will tell somebody to move to a different county before they send their child to this school. yet you will collect a check from the same school. I'm not here to talk about anybody who ain't in the room, just so we're clear. I'm not interested in anybody else in Memphis. I'm here talking to my brothers and sisters. I'm here to say that you as educators, you ain't slick. Just because you're here on Sunday don't make you right. I see you, and don't you sit there and tell me I work hard. Education is a hard job. You're right. If you suck at it, leave it. They say to me because they get mad. They get mad. They say, you know, you just say that stuff because I run a school with 70% poor children, 86% black and Latino, and send every single one of them to college. I got a liquor store across the street from my school. I got some tore down buildings and a crack house across the street from my school. But inside we got magic happening every single day. I can't close down that liquor store. I can't close down. I'm telling you, they line up. They sell Jordans in the street, the store across the street. And brother, I'm talking, because it's cold still in Connecticut. And brother be out waiting for the new Jordans. But that don't bother me because my job is inside the building. So, Pastor, I'll make you a principal. It's not enough to preach the word, we got to teach the word. Every single body in here knows somebody sitting next to them, in front of them, or behind them who struggles to read. Every one of us. And not one of us has the right to feel embarrassed because you didn't do it to yourself. If you went to 187 days of school over the course of 12, 13 years, you have every right to believe that you should have gotten an education. I believe that it's a crime. I cannot wait for somebody who's an attorney to sue a school system, and I'm saying this, for damages. I want you to sue them for damages. Shut them down. I'm a big proponent of vouchers. People say, we don't believe in vouchers. Use a lie. Anybody like Section 8? How about Medicaid? Medicare? Financial aid? Yeah, I think you must have misunderstood the whole voucher conversation. They say, well, but they're going to take money away from public schools. They're going to take money away from raggedy schools. But imagine if Memphis had vouchers. Y'all could open a school on this spot today. Every single one of you could send your children to the church that you believe feeds your soul. If you believe this church feeds your soul, it can feed your children knowledge. Why? Why on earth should you have to beg and plead somebody? Why should you have to move from house to house, lie about where you live? Why should you have to break the law, steal an education in America? Why should you have to win a lottery to get an education in America? Why should you have to scrimp and scrounge? Why should you have to beg or take the crumbs off the table? We fought that fight already. It's over. Let's get an education. We have come too far. But it's got to start here. See, y'all can't run out there half-cocked, fired up. We gonna get us a school. when you ain't educating each other. We got to be honest. You can say that the stats are a lie, and maybe it's not 30%, maybe it's 24%. But if one person in this church of any age cannot read at the level that she or he knows that they should be able to, and this is not about a standardized test, this is not about anything other than that, then this church owes it to that member to feed their soul and make it possible for them to work. See, because there's no better jobs program than education. There's no better sense of self-esteem than education. There's nothing that will lift you up more than education. It's hard to feel at home in the church when you don't even know what they're reading. You can't have a critical conversation when you got to wait for the other person to read it to you. What is Bible study when you can't even read the book? What are we doing to you? If we know you struggle, if we say, okay, brother such and such, can you read such and such, and he stumbles his way all the way through it, and essentially you end up reading it for him, you are not doing him a service by letting that continue. That man might have children or grandchildren who he has to be responsible for, and that child may have some medication. Mr. Z told me that he didn't know the difference between a tablespoon and a teaspoon. I'm not making fun of him, and dare not one of you laugh, because he's not the only one. Let's be clear. Mr. Z said he was afraid to give his children medication. So you, because you're afraid, and I understand the courage that it took for this man to stand up and say to someone, even if only in their ear, I can't read. He was afraid of being a father. What if many of those men who are not handling business right now are doing so just because they couldn't read? It's possible, right? It's possible. It's possible that they don't read to their sons at night because they can't. How many times have you heard your grandmother or aunt say, "Ooh, I don't have my glasses"? I don't have my glasses. Can you look at this and tell me what it says? We are perpetuating a lie that is killing our community. Because we're afraid to go into the schools, they give us crumbs and disgusting things that they call an education. And then what they do, and they is us. We, the educators, give you a child on medication. We tell you that something's wrong with your baby. And I have to own it because I'm a member of this group. We will pump your child of the heaviest narcotics that we know. You got to understand, these are real drugs. These are not, this is worse than alcohol. You do understand that, right? Your child will be better off to go and pop the cap and drink a 40 than take some of this medication. These are psychotropic meds. That means that they're really bad. Now, don't think that I'm saying that some kids shouldn't be on it. There's a small group that definitely needs them. Believe me. But unfortunately, we keep giving it to all the black boys. But because you and this church have not been honest with one another about your literacy, because of that, you let it happen. And it's not because you're a bad parent, it's because you're a trusting person. And you think they would never lie to me, not the school, not the good teachers. These folks see our kids as dangerous. Remember when you had your little boy? Remember how first thing people came in there and they talked about how smart he was, how bright his eyes were? How he looked like his granddaddy? I guess everybody looks like their granddaddy when they're little and old looking, right? Long fingers and toes, right? And he talked about how smart he was and how he could pick up and he could dance and learn songs. But then we send him off to the schools and they tell us at 3 he's so far behind. 3 years old, the first 2 years he's just trying to get up right. Peeing and pooping, that's what we celebrate. Like, yeah, what? My son goes to the bathroom on his own. We send him to the schools, they tell him he's far behind. They say he don't know how to act. And then what he does, just like you do, he disengages because he can't read just like you. Got a house full of folks who can't read, and it's not an indictment. It's saying that somebody did something to you. Somebody put a root on you. They did something wrong to you. You did not do this to yourself. They poisoned your water. They made you think something. They told you were supposed. Anytime you go from one grade to the next, you should have mastered certain skills. There is nothing social about promotion when you can't read. You can't be a part of the group when you're sitting there don't understand what's going on. And we, those of us here, we can't let this happen anymore. At the end of so many services, people ask you to come down, they ask you to come to God, and they ask you to come and humble yourself. We're coming to that point in the service. You got to humble yourself. Men, women, I can talk to you about education all day. We could run through it. I can talk about how to run a successful school, but that's not what we're here for. The school, you are it. This is 2,200 men and women from this community who are being hustled because too many of you are afraid to participate in the conversation. When I go to wealthy white suburbs, they're not scared. They go right up to the board of education meeting, ain't got enough to say. But us, we got something to do because we don't have our glasses and we can't really see it. Every single one of us in here has heard somebody say that to us. Every single one of us has heard somebody say that to us. And you know the glasses are hanging from her neck and you don't ask her to lift them up to her face because you know what she's saying. You do not want to embarrass her, but you know she's saying she can't read it. Or if she can't read it, she can't comprehend it. And if she can't comprehend it, how's she going to do anything with it? It seems absurd in a church that operates on a book that you participate in it when you don't even know what you're agreeing to. Faith is one thing, but don't you want to read the manual? Don't you want to get a glimpse at the instructions? I mean, pastors, you know, pastors, but don't you want to read? Check it out. Check it out. He ain't scared of you reading it. It makes his job easier. Right? Preaching the word has its place, but teaching the word is really where we are right now. It is imperative that you, as a community, recognize that the reason why so many of your children are pregnant, the reason why HIV/AIDS is ravaging your community, the reason why your school system has been turned over to another school system that is a fraction of its size, the reason why I can drive by and see daycare center says kids something or other, spelled K-I-D-Z. You can get fancy with a lot of things, but don't spell kids wrong. I understand you did it on purpose. It's supposed to be like urban. Don't get urban with my education, man. Give me suburban all day. The reason why I can pass by communities with shiny cars and raggedy houses is because in this community, at its root, at its core, at its very center, is a rot. And the rot comes from a fear that is born out of a lack of ability to read. Nobody come to you as a church and tell you, hey, man, I know most of y'all struggle with reading at least on the level that you want, and a lot of y'all can't read at all. People won't say that to you because they want to be polite to you, because, you know, they just want to get along. They want you, woo, yeah, do all the thing, because it's fun speaking in front of a black church. I mean, I could pull one of those out on you. But Pastor told me upstairs, he said, say what's on your heart. So what's on my heart is I can't leave this place, I can't leave this state with you thinking that I don't know the truth. I know you're smart. I know you are. My grandfather was one of the most intelligent men I've ever met. Just like many of you, you know, our aunts and uncles who say that, you know, read this for me because, you know, my glasses, right? It's not an issue of intelligence. My grandfather was far smarter than I am. I mean, it really was. Man could take anything apart and put it back together. Well, mostly together. I mean, you know, some parts wouldn't be there, but that's all right. It ran. Oh, we got the same granddaddy, huh? My granddaddy was MacGyver. He could just take it apart. Granddaddy, we just bought that. It ain't running right. Granddaddy, we just took it out the box. The times have changed. The rest of the world, those second and third world countries, they can read. For real, they're using computers. Education has changed from the brick and mortar, meaning in the building, to online. Memphis, y'all are out of the discussion. Y'all ain't even in the race. If they gave you the computers, what would you do with them? Google is making the rest of the world smarter, and 70% of your children can't read on level? What are you going to do? What's left? I'll tell you what's left. People hurt people who can't read. Every single time I go to talk to a prison, the overwhelming majority of those brothers in there, good dudes, can't read. And people always say, well, he could have been a judge or a junkie. Well, not so much the judge side. If you want me to be honest with you, he couldn't because he can't participate in academic experience. Because when people say things like academic experience, he's like, well, what is he talking about? I was no different coming up. It wasn't like I was born into a situation in which people were reading to me. I was born on my mother's 16th birthday. My father still doesn't have a high school diploma and is homeless. Amazing. TV could bring a father all the way back into your life. I'll tell y'all something real quick, because I'm with, you know, because y'all don't got me fired up. So my youngest son, I told you, Walker, he's a spicy one. He's just got, I always got to keep a hand ready to choke him out. Stop it, boy. It's like I'm telling you, I got to be quick on the draw. So my father came over to the house. That's already strange. But anyway, he came over to the house. And he says, he comes into the house, and my son, Walker's, you know, Walker looking at him. Now I'm looking at him, boy. I can see he's about to do it. You know what I'm saying? He can't hold himself back. He's 5. And he's slick with the tongue. So I'm looking at him. He knows I'm looking at him. My father's over there talking to him. And Walker knows I'm looking at him, but he can't hold it back. He says, "Who are you?" But he inched really far across the room, so I couldn't get him. You understand what I'm saying? He's smart. And so my father says, well, I'm Pop. He says, well, you got old. He's right. I don't want you to think that I come from a different situation than you. I don't want you to think that I didn't struggle all the way through school. I'm being honest with you. I never told anybody this before. I struggled all the way through. Every single time they would tell me to read, I'd be like, damn. You know what I'm saying? And then the books would come and be like, boom, drop it down.